What is your NSW fun fact about yourself? Thanks to an autoimmune disease, my dong is a couple of different colors. No other part of my body has been affected, just my dong. Taste the rainbow. Girlfriend got a dildo with a suction cup and we were fooling around and I stuck it to my forehead. I was a dildo unicorn for about 30 seconds. Took it off, and the look of horror from her said it all. I had a giant purple bruise on my forehead. Couldn't find a good excuse, so I called out of work the next day and learned how to do makeup. Don't be a dildo unicorn. Don't suction anything to be a unicorn. My 9-year-old did this last month with a suction arrow and she had a large red bruise for a week. Super cute at her age, saying she was trying to be a unicorn though. I once realigned the lower spine of a girl I had been seeing by, well, doggy style. She had been plagued by lower back and tailbone issues for months until that fateful day. She thanked me for my services and needless to say, my dong is now a licensed chiropractor. I thought that was metaphor at first. My pee turns toilets purple. It was the freakiest thing when it started happening and my doctor couldn't figure out what was happening. I would use a toilet and then a few hours later brownish spots would appear and those spots would eventually turn a purplish color. My wife and I figured it had to be something to do with my medication because it only started happening when I switched to new meds. Eventually, after a lot of research, we found a paper in a medical journal that mentioned that in very rare cases the urine of patients who took my medication would have interactions with various household cleaners. That interaction can happen on the film of cleaning solution residue on toilets and turn brown, red or even purple. That's freaking freaky. Somewhat similarly, my blood turned an awful greenish brown on a B-grain med. My testicles are drastically different sizes, like a golf ball and a macadamia nut. Pics or it's not real. The former Prime Minister, Teodosic of Ireland has touched my penis. In a medical context, of course. I don't know if this is NSW, but when I was born my penis was so crooked they had to completely rearrange it in surgery. They said that if it was left as it was my dong would point at a 60 or so degree angle to the left and that urinating would have been quite the task. At the height of experiencing prolonged concussion symptoms, I masturbated and felt a jolt, like a shock of electricity, travel up my body to the part of my brain where a light fixture fell on my head. My symptoms instantly subsided. I once was the dude the lesbian chick had sex with who upon having sex with me decided she does in fact like girls. I take this as both a compliment and an insult. I was that girl once. My friend was questioning if he was gay or bi, and he was very attractive, so we hooked up. He was fine with the BJ, but lost it during sex. Yeah, he was gay. My dad was having sex with a hospital nurse while my mom was giving birth to me. That's long been used for the menophites and reasons my mom hates men. This is insanely fricked up. Smoking killed my libido, so I killed 2 birds with 1 stone and quit for good by rubbing one out each time I got a craving. Like multiple times a day, especially at work. 10/10 would recommend. Beating chicken, cold turkey. On occasion my dreams are so vivid that I mistake them as reality, and only realize it's not so after I wake up. The rare times when I have the urge to pee in the morning after stupidly drinking liters of water before I sleep, my dreams shift to being in the toilet where I pee. My brain and body get synchronized to my dream and I end up pee in my pants. Weird but embarrassing experience, and I'm in my 20s. Probably a consequence of stress. I'm several months out from the last time I had sex. I had a checkup recently and had a blood pressure cuff strapped around my wrist. When it squeezed my wrist, I immediately got pretty turned on. Apparently I miss physical contact. Same here, but it was an attractive dentist feeling around my jaw, kind of on my neck. If I was a dude I'd have had a raging hard on. I have 2 buttholes. Update. I am sorry to those of you that feel misled. The second hole above my anus is inactive. There has been an inquisition or interrogation into my anuses or neonusis, no idea how to pluralize it. Second one isn't an anus, it's a hole in the crack of my butt that serves no purpose. One person suggested smuggling, but it would need to have very high cost to density to make sense. Anyway, thanks for the interest. Whoa, don't talk about your kids like that. I once spied on someone jerking off in the nearby stall at a mall toilet room. That was An experience, but I really don't want to repeat it. One time for break when I worked at UPS, I walked into a bathroom stall and someone had left their CM in the toilet water and all over the toilet seat. I developed a dime-size boil right by the base of my dong, on my abdomen. Not on my dong itself, thank God. I was probably 19 at the time. I could have gone to the doctor, but for some reason in my head I just knew that whelp gotta lance that thing. Looking back, I don't know why I thought that was wise. So I got a safety pin, bent it open, ran it through the flame of our stove's burner a few times, wiped the area with an alcohol wipe, put a pencil in my mouth to bite down on, and then poked a hole in it and squeezed a bit. I remember the feeling of the skin tearing as the squeezing pressure tore the pinhole wider, and some blood and pus squirted out into the sink. I rinsed, doused the thing in peroxide, wadded some gauze onto the spot and put a big waterproof bandage on. I changed the bandage each day and reapplied peroxide. It didn't reform, and within a week I was pretty much completely healed. Oddly enough, it didn't actually hurt when I did it. I think it formed below the epidermis and dermis, so there wasn't really a wound from it. It was more like popping a blister, where there's still intact skin underneath. I was oddly proud of myself for the whole thing. I felt like I had taken pretty good precautions to prevent infection and had generally prepared well. It was still stupid, but it all worked out. For a little while back in 2015 to 2016, I was dating a very high libido woman and we drank a lot. Frick like rabbits. A few weeks go by, and when we would have sex, I would CM blood. Well, very bloody CM. This happened for a couple months. Pretty gross. We wondered if my kidneys were failing. Was my bladder messed and leaking? So many questions for a couple months. We broke up and after only a few days, I no longer had blood in my CM. Turns out, we were having too rough sex too often, and the constant pounding was rupturing blood vessels in my penis, and we never rested long enough to let them fully heal. The blood pressure in my penis during sex, coupled with the abuse, was filling my urethra with blood. Moral of the story: frick too hard for too long and too often, you can break your dong. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is spongy and bruised. Slept with a very quiet guy. Finished. Thought he did shortly after and was like that was totally better than the first time and we cleaned up and passed out. Found out the next morning that he absolutely had not finished. Whoops. Total sweetheart though. Just never thought that as a woman I would finish and my FWB wouldn't. I've faked an orgasm before and I'm a dude. I was about 13 and came home from a Boy Scout camping trip to discover there was a tick on the underside of my dong shaft. Even though you learn about how to handle them in Boy Scouts, I nevertheless freaked out because there was a tick on my goddamn dong. I asked my dad for help and he carefully used the match head trick to get rid of it. Cut to 20 plus years later and my parents, a bunch of friends, a couple of parents of those friends and I are at a pizza place playing trivia, nomming some za, and drinking. My dad is a lightweight and got pretty drunk. No idea how he got to the topic, but he's telling another parent that I was well endowed. The table was quiet when he said this, so all 10 plus people heard. I can only recall the tick dong debacle as the sole point where he ever would have seen anything. It was freaking embarrassing. I should have just left the tick alone and died in peace with my penis parasite. You've heard of Elf on a Shelf? Get ready for sigh. I feel like this is the only reason my throwaway ever comes out, but I came while getting the scalp massage at the barber's. I remember the girl cutting my hair was about my age, maybe a little bit older, but we had a good rapport, pleasant chat. So after the haircut she walks me back to the tub for the hair wash. It's not a seated one, it's a full flat lay down. Just putting that out there so you know how vulnerable I feel when the magic starts. Haha. She starts washing my hair and rubbing my scalp and it feels really good. I remember feeling very relaxed. Not turned on really at all %, but relaxed in a good feel bliss. I seem to recall things turning a different corner when she started stroking my neck. Felt so good. I'm not sure anything was intentional and I'm sure it was all the standard deal, but I definitely looked back on the neck stroking and wondered afterwards. Just picking up the pieces. Looking for answers lol. I don't remember really having an erection. I just remember all of a sudden feeling it, its presence. It started to tingle, kind of that buzzing feeling. and then the pulsing and blammo. It was very weird, much more like what a wet dream feels like than an orgasm from actual sexual activity. It's been a few years and a little bit of blur, but I remember the wash ended shortly after that. I'm sure I squirmed a bit and maybe tried to act like I was adjusting my body. I mean, she was focused on my head, so there's at least a prayer she didn't notice. Luckily, I had a sweatshirt and dark jeans on, so when I got up to go back to the chair for the dryer and walk through a frickin' packed barber shop, I sort of just put my hands on the pockets of my sweatshirt and sort of subtly pulled my sweatshirt down a little further than it would normal hang on its own. I still have no idea if the stylist knew, but bless her, she didn't act like it. She continued to talk to me like nothing had happened. She finished. We did the next leg of the awkward walk over to the checkout counter, and I paid and got out of there as fast as I could. So awkward. As I mentioned in the comment of another post, it gave me real anxiety for a while. I've never accepted a hair wash since, and for a while I would make sure to masturbate the same day I had a haircut scheduled if I could. I've also never really had a good professional massage before, and I'm almost terrified to try for this exact reason. Very random and strange experience, though I do sometimes wish I could recreate that relaxing and blissful experience again in the comfort of my own home. You need to get more use out of this throwaway, sir. I accidentally started giving another guy a handy once. Story time. The guy was brain injured. I was working at a long-term brain trauma rehab facility, and one of my patients, we called them clients, was a guy that had incontinence issues. He wore adult diapers, but at night we would also put on a condom catheter, which was basically a condom connected to small hose that ran into a little pouch on the side of his bed. So every night we had to roll the condom onto him. One night, I rolled the condom on, but it rolled right back up, so I rolled it down again, and again. It rolled back up. This process went on a few times, until I noticed that he was getting an erection. Now, me being an idiot, my first thought was, oh, that will make this easier, until I realized that I was basically giving a handy to a brain injured guy in a diaper. I just looked up at him kind of surprised, and he was laughing his butt off. He goes, hey, that feels pretty good, in a tone where I knew he was giving me crap. So yeah, accidental handy. I lost my virginity to the wife of my boss at the time. I was 18 and working at McDonald's, and I found out my ex-GF from 8th grade. She was 2 years older than me, was married to my shift manager at the restaurant. They were fighting at the time, and when we hooked up I had no idea she was married to my boss until after it happened. Later found out he had cheated on her, so it was one big game I got caught in. They later divorced. Sex was good at least. At that age I was just trying to lose my virginity before college, but looking back it was probably a dumb move. I used to fantasize about women before I knew I was bi, and before I knew what sex was. I would fantasize about holding them down and tickling them, and it made me feel good, but I didn't know why. Clicked years later that I just like women, lol. Harold's gay. I have actually been jerking off to cartoons when I was like a small kid without even realizing it. Boy, was I in for a realization like a decade later. When flaccid, I can pull the head of my penis back inside of itself. I'm cut. I've honestly never asked anyone if they can do it, so it might just be a normal dong function. I can also pop both testicles back up inside myself. So if I do it all at once, I've got an empty sack dangling under an inside-out dong until I let go. The thing with the balls is actually part of how drag queens tuck their stuff, so hey, you're halfway there. Well, it was that one time I had sex. Condom bit tight. Went in and felt something snap. Not painful but strange. Then it felt wet. I pulled out and took off the condom to be greeted with blood, and the girl got a lot of blood on her face. Somehow, I nearly passed out. Dong broken for 2 weeks. Won't redo. My last sexual encounter involved me riding a guy who slapped me, so I slapped him back and we were slapping each other for a good 5 more seconds until he came really hard. It was freaking hot. As a dude that's 6 feet 4 inches, being physically dominated by a girl half my size is a huge turn on. You know, this is one of those Ask Reddits I see that I have no answer to, that I like to scroll through to see how the answers range from "that's pretty vanilla" to "there is no way that's true." I'm here more for the responses to the answers than the answers themselves. Some are bloody hilarious. My butt is covered in small scars. I hooked up with this girl and ended up staying over. Woke up in the middle of the night needing to pee. I'd had a few to drink and was naked. I had to pass through her living room to get to the bathroom. As I tiptoed my way through the living room, I trod on her sleeping cat. Cat screams and scratches me. I panic and stumble butt first through a small glass table. I had about 20 cuts in my butt. Blood everywhere, and of course, just to round things off, I pee right then and there. Needless to say, the girl woke up to a traumatized cat, a destroyed coffee table and a living room covered in pee and blood. I left very shortly afterwards and was not surprised to find myself blocked instantly, but I still carry the scars to this day. I joined the Mile High Club about 15 years ago. TBH, outside of bragging rights, it's not really that fun. If I masturbate and then go into the shower and let the warm water hit the penis tip, it'll have a second orgasm, but instead of semen it's urine. Someone tell me I am not alone. I've never actually let it go as far as to orgasm again, but I absolutely know this feeling. Thought it was just me. This will probably get lost in the comments, but one time I was absolutely hammered getting a BJ and I accidentally peed in the girl's mouth. I'll admit, not my finest moment. Once I reached my hand down the back of my pants to spread my butt cheeks apart to muffle the sound of a fart. I didn't want the chick I was hanging out with to hear it. I crap in my hand. How does one just casually crap in hand? Throw away because my wife doesn't need to see this. LOL. I lost my virginity to my boss at my first job. I'm male. She's female. Who later became the wife of my boss at my second job. I was 17. She was in her late 40s. I never looked at her sexually. It honestly never crossed my mind until she was moving into an apartment and asked if I would help because I had a truck. We finished about 10 PM. She said she was going to change and buy me dinner to thank me. A couple of minutes later she called me into the bedroom. She was on the bed in her bra and panties, and my dumbass apologized and stepped back out of the room. She came to the door, pulled me back in, and she got to have the worst sex of her life. It was bad, but at least it was over quick. Somehow that turned into a weekly thing for 6 months until she started dating someone and I found my first girlfriend. Well, she got married to the guy she was dating about 6 months later and quit work. I worked in the store for another year before graduating high school and getting a better job while I was in college. I'm sitting in my interview. He's looking down my resume and goes, "Hey, you used to work for my wife." He offered me the job. My second day there she came in, found me, pulled me in the break room and swore me to secrecy. I worked there 17 years. I don't think he ever knew. I had sex in a very expensive stolen car. I didn't know it was stolen at the time. My fuck buddy worked at a car dealer and said they were allowed to borrow the cars after hours, but when we saw a cop afterwards, screamed get out, and we left and ran down the Embarcadero. For about a month, I worried that the cops would find me due to my fingerprints being all over the place, but that was when I was young and thought cops actually cared about that kind of stuff. The first time I fingered a girl was during midnight mass on Christmas Eve in a Catholic church. I have a noticeable birthmark on the shaft of my penis. It's a large spot on top that has a line the whole way around. I even won a contest with it once as a teenager because it was unique and more impressive than a bare bland one. Me and my girlfriend lived in a student apartment complex some time ago. Before we moved out, we went ahead and banged on all 8 floors of the building. In the elevator, the laundry room, the stairway, the gym, the mirrors were great here, the common room, and multiple balconies, etc. My girlfriend even got totally naked for a few of the sessions. We did it at 2 AM on a Sunday night and got back to our own apartment at like 3:30 AM. We didn't get caught, I think. The "I think" made me laugh. When my mother was still pregnant with me and they were getting an ultrasound, they mistook me for a female cause my penis was so large that they mistook it for an arm. What a surprise for your parents who had your pink 3-armed baby clothes ready for you. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.